Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is continuing the perfect bounce from this crucial level of support here, at least up until we're now starting to run into this massive area of resistance that we need to pay attention to. But while all of this is happening on the price chart, we can see that the price of Bitcoin is also now approaching a new level of liquidity in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map that we cannot ignore. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment, alongside Ethereum, which is continuing the perfect bounce from this crucial Fibonacci level of support, while the price of XRP is also now playing out this oversold signal on the 3-day time frame. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, and we still have this massive bearish divergence playing out on the weekly time frame. So over the last few days, really nothing much has changed on the weekly Bitcoin price chart. But if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, right now we're potentially still seeing history repeat on the price chart. Obviously, we're now starting to diverge a little bit from this previous fractal from what we saw around middle of 2022, because obviously during that major collapse, we did see a bit of a sideways consolidation for 1 to 2 weeks, and then another collapse, whereas this time around we barely saw that sideways consolidation. It was only 1 to 2 days rather than 1 to 2 weeks. But obviously this is just to point out that overall, if we're looking at the larger direction that we're heading in terms of the larger time frames, we're still not in the clear yet. We're still not looking too good on the larger time frames. But yes, of course, here and there in the short term, we can see little bounces and bullish reliefs and sideways consolidations and things like that along the way towards the downside during the larger bearish movement. So keep that in mind, understand the difference between the different time frames. That's the larger situation, the slightly mid to longer term situation. If we're taking a look at the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, if we're looking at the somewhat shorter term situation here, right now the price of Bitcoin is obviously bouncing from pretty much exactly $60,000 as a psychological level, which is also proving to be as major support at around 60,000, and below that level we also would likely find a lot of support in between around 53,000 to 56,000 if the price were to actually get back to those levels. But like I explained in my last video, not only are we bouncing from 60,000, obviously we also hit well into oversold on the daily chart, the 3-day chart, even on the weekly time frame we're reaching into oversold, which is not yet fully confirmed based on the weekly candle closes. But here on the 3-day time frame, we did confirm a massive oversold signal in the 3-day Bitcoin RSI, and the last time we just briefly hit oversold was around end of November 2025, and what came next was just a bit of a bounce, a slight bullish relief. Once again, not a massive high momentum reversal towards the upside ending the bearish trend. Once again, I'm not saying expect a huge reversal out of the bearish trend, but just in the shorter term, yes, it is likely we could play out either a sideways consolidation or maybe just a slight little bullish relief, as we already are starting a bounce from this level of support. But as this plays out in the coming days or possibly weeks, of course, we need to be aware of points of resistance where the price could potentially struggle at or reject from. And the first significant area of resistance to watch out for is this area on the price chart in between around 72,000 to 76,000 as a larger area, but especially that 72K level, that's a key level to watch out for based on previous significant resistance that we saw basically around the first half of 2024. And then also based on previous support that we saw back in around March to April 2025, we have a lot of previous support likely acting as new resistance at give or take 75 to 76,000, especially closer towards 77,000 as well, as most likely a major point of resistance based on previous support flipping into resistance. And so obviously over the last 1 day, we could see that already the price of Bitcoin has gone up towards pretty much exactly $72,000 per Bitcoin, and then now started to struggle and see a slight little rejection in the short term from give or take 72,000, close to 72,000, which is obviously where we've been expecting resistance based on this previous resistance here. But like I also explained in my last video, it's quite likely that this is at least the local low for the price of Bitcoin, not necessarily the bottom forever, but at least for the coming days or maybe weeks, will likely hold above 60,000. Once again, playing out either a sideways consolidation or a little bit more of a bullish relief into this area of resistance in the coming days or possibly weeks here. But remember, expect a lot of struggle in this area of resistance. And so ultimately, that is my prediction in the somewhat shorter term here. And of course, the longer term, not really changing all that much over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin Bitcoin liquidation heat map, zoomed in a little bit, looking at the last just 3 days worth of price action, we could see a new short-term level of liquidity building at around 72.1k to 72.2k. So obviously slightly above 72,000. We do have that level of liquidity building there for the price of Bitcoin, which is obviously right here, just entering into this area of resistance, which means it's likely, obviously no such thing as a guarantee, but it's likely that maybe in the next few days or within the next 1 week, most likely we could see another retest of this resistance, maybe slightly entering into the area of resistance just above 72k, maybe just to take out that liquidity, and then once again expect a lot of struggle around that area or in that area. And so overall, those are my expectations and the key levels and signals to watch out for the price of Bitcoin in the shorter term and the longer term. And obviously, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any crypto, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below this video in the description and in the pinned comment, that first link below the video will take you to this page right here over on the BTNX crypto exchange, which by the way is a no KYC exchange. And as you can see right here on this page, there's an exclusive prize pool of up to 50,000 USDT just by simply trading crypto using that first link below the video. So especially if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. You might as well take advantage of this extra, basically free money just from trading crypto using that link. And once again, remember, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange. But if you want another option out there, another exchange that I also personally use myself, then in that situation, check out the second link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, which that link, by the way, will take you to this page where you can also take advantage of extra bonuses up to 800,000 USD in prizes here just by simply trading crypto using that second link below the video to 2bit. And in case you're wondering, yes, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and for the most part, we can see that the Bitcoin dominance is still basically just chopping around sideways in a bit of a sideways price range. Obviously, if we're talking about short-term moves, yes, we can see short-term bullish, short-term bearish moves, but for the most part, we're basically just bouncing around relatively sideways, which means for the most part, expect a lot of the major altcoins out there on average to perform very similar to whatever Bitcoin is doing. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, we can see that right now the price of ETH is obviously already confirmed a break towards the downside below this previous significant area of support, which was sitting in between around 2.2k to 2.4k. So keep in mind that will likely now act as new resistance as we continue a bit more of a bounce, a bit more of a shorter term bullish relief. Once again, expect a lot of struggle, most likely rejections from around this area on the price chart in between 2.2k to 2.4k. And as for support, we have significant support all the way down here in between 1.5k to 1.6k. But before that area of support, we also have this short-term level of support here, which we perfectly bounced from over the last few days after that massive crash. And that's based on this 78.6% Fibonacci level sitting at pretty much exactly 1.8k. So continue to expect a lot of support at around 1800 per ETH. And of course, we're also playing out an oversold signal, not just on the daily RSI, but also on the 3-day Ethereum RSI hitting oversold, and now playing out just a bit of a bounce in the short term to reset the RSI out of oversold territories. But just be aware that of course an oversold signal isn't always a bottom signal. In fact, a lot of the time it points towards, yes, some sort of bounce or some sort of bullish relief is a very likely scenario, but not necessarily the bottom. It doesn't confirm the bottom is actually in place. It is possible we can go lower later on. As always, no guarantees, but that's still a risk that we need to be aware of. But just for now, in the shorter term, for the coming days or possibly weeks, yes, it is quite likely we'll play out a little bit of a relief, either sideways consolidation or a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief, perhaps into this area of resistance, and then starting to struggle around that area on the price chart. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at XRP on the weekly time frame, obviously on this larger time frame, not a lot has changed over the last 1 day. We're still technically playing out this massive bearish divergence that I warned about since almost all-time highs, actually, back around end of July 2025, early August 2025. You can even watch my videos all the way back then when the price was well above $3, warning about this multi-month collapse in the price coming next. So obviously that's all still playing out as predicted basically over half a year ago. And so keep in mind, once again, we're not in the clear yet. We've not guaranteed or confirmed we've hit the bottom for this larger bearish move. But if we're talking about the shorter term situation, as in the short term moves during the larger bearish trend, yes, we can see short term bullish moves here and there along the way towards the downside, as we've seen many examples of over the last half a year. And so once again, the shorter term situation is that right now, this is likely at least a local low. Once again, not necessarily the bottom of the larger bearish move, but some sort of local low that will likely last for at least a few days, most likely at least a few weeks or so, playing out either a sideways consolidation or a little bit more of a bullish relief, playing out an oversold signal from this 3-day XRP RSI. And the last time we hit oversold in the 3-day XRP RSI was all the way back here in July 2024. And of course, what came next after that previous oversold signal in the 3-day XRP RSI was actually a decent shorter term bullish relief over the coming days and really over the next couple of weeks, playing out a lot of choppy sideways price action. So ultimately, that's my basically shorter term expectation, short to midterm, but the longer term situation still not in the clear yet. And as for significant levels of support along the way towards the downside, in case we ultimately continue a bit more bearish price action at some stage later on after we first play out a bit of a relief, in that situation, I would expect a decent amount of support in between roughly $1.30 to $1.40. Also more support at around $1.12 to $1.13 based on this 50% retracement level, the previous 50% retracement level, which is pretty much exactly where we bounced from after that flash crash. And then below that level, I'd also expect a lot of support in between 90 cents to $1 if the price were to actually get down there. And as for resistance to watch out for, as we're potentially playing out a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief in the coming days or maybe the next 1 to 2 weeks, obviously we have to watch out for resistance, and I'll be really focusing on roughly $1.60 as a key level of resistance. And if we actually break out back above that level, we'll likely find significant resistance at give or take $1.80 if the price were to actually get back all the way up there. And with that being said, if we're taking a quick look at the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, we can see that right now the price of Solana is also continuing a perfect bounce from this crucial area of support here on the price chart, sitting in between $75 to $80. So once again, continue to expect a lot of support in that area right there, which is precisely where we bounced from, especially based on the candle closes here. And if we're taking a look at resistance based on previous support flipping into new resistance, that's sitting in between around $95 to $105. And if we're looking at the larger trends that the price of Solana is currently in, whether you're looking at this trend from this high or this larger trend all the way back towards these highs, obviously right now we're still technically within more of a longer term bearish trend, a much larger bearish trend, playing out a shorter term bounce during a larger bearish trend like we've seen many times, obviously just basically the opposite to these little pullbacks along the way towards the upside during a bullish trend. And so just keep that in mind. We've not fully confirmed any reversal out of this larger bearish trend. We've not confirmed that the end of this bearish trend is right now, but what we have confirmed is of course an oversold signal in the 3-day Solana RSI. For the first time in a very long time, we got very close to oversold back here around March 2025, and what came next was just a shorter term bullish relief. Once again, not necessarily the bottom, but yes, a short-term bullish relief over the coming days or possibly weeks is quite likely, potentially into this area of resistance, and then expect a lot of struggle in that area, once again in between $95 to $105. And if we're taking a quick look at the Solana funding rate, obviously following up to what I said in my last video, right now obviously a lot of these funding rates for the most part have basically normalized. Obviously the BTNX rate right here is relatively neutral. In case you're new to all of this, the neutral rate is 0.01%. So right now a lot of these funding rates have basically normalized at this point, which means at this point, the arbitrage is now basically closed. And now, obviously, ideally, it would have been better if this arbitrage remained open for a longer period of time. The longer that remained open, the more money we could have made from actually trading that arbitrage. And of course, the last time something similar like this happened, it lasted for around 2 to almost 3 days, whereas this time around, it lasted for barely 1 day. And so obviously, these types of arbitrages don't last very long. You have to be very quick on these moves, but you can potentially make some easy money if you spot any arbitrage opportunities like this, which I did share in my last video. But because this arbitrage is now basically being closed, of course, I've now just closed out of those positions that I shared in my last video. So as of recording this video, I'm currently in no new trades as of right now. I've basically secured a bunch of easy profits over the last few days from that XRP shorts position, from the funding rate arbitrage, etc., as I've been sharing over the last few days. And so with that being said, taking a quick look at the price of Chainlink on the 3-day time frame, and right now the price of Chainlink is also playing out just a shorter term bullish relief, obviously bouncing from this support at give or take $8 on the low end of this area, in between $8 to $8.50 as a key area of support to watch out for. And as for resistance, we're now potentially on our way towards retesting this previous area of support, likely now acting as new resistance in between $9.50 to $10. And of course, we're also playing out an oversold signal in the 3-day Chainlink RSI, which is telling us that yes, we're most likely going to play out either a bit more of a bounce, a bit more of a shorter term bullish relief, or maybe just a bit of choppy sideways price action in order to help to reset the RSI out of oversold in the coming days or possibly the next 1 or 2 weeks. But remember, it is possible to see those sort of movements during the larger bearish trend. So remember, we've not yet fully confirmed the end of the larger bearish trend. We've not yet confirmed any massive bullish trend reversal, but just in the shorter term for the coming days or possibly weeks, yes, it is quite likely we're going to see a bit of a relief, a bit of a break from all of this bearish price action. But once again, be aware of these points of resistance where the price could potentially struggle out or possibly reject from. And so overall, those are the key signals and my expectations and predictions in the shorter term, and looking at the bigger picture for Chainlink and all of these other crypto assets. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim and take advantage of extra bonuses that are only available using those links. And of course, if you want to actually know how you can trade these sort of moves, no matter what direction the price goes, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.